there, Grateful Gang. Welcome to Gratefully Living the Chronic Life. I am so happy to be back with you all. It's been 2 weeks. It feels like much longer to me. So thank you for bearing with me. 2 weeks ago, I was all scheduled to come on. I had a great topic, and then wasn't even an hour before showtime, I just started feeling really lousy. And I hate canceling, but I knew, and it was the right decision for me. So thank you for bearing with me. And then last week, I had a very important show to go to. My nieces were in their end of camp summer theater show, Mamma Mia. So Aunt Lauren could not miss that. So that's where I was last week. But thank you for being back here with me. My name is Lauren Blanchard-Zaleski, if you're new to the broadcast, and I run a group on Facebook, a community called Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, as well as the website gratitudeaddict.com. And I teach and believe that gratitude, incorporating that into our lives, can be a complete game changer when it comes to living with our struggles peacefully, joyfully, wholeheartedly. It did for me. I had a very low rock bottom 8 years ago, after trying treatment after treatment after treatment, and things just, I allowed things to get bad. I didn't talk to people. I was not doing things that I should be doing, and I wasn't willing to accept my illness. So after a lot of meetings and rehab and all of that, I have found that the single most powerful treatment that I have had in order for me to live my best life is a practice of gratitude, which is why I started the group. And then we started this broadcast, I think it was April of last year, right when the pandemic started. So thank you for being here. We are an interactive broadcast. So if you have any questions or comments, you can put them on the screen. I see we've already got a couple here. Seaton Silver says, hello. Hi, Seaton. And Linda's here. Hello. Welcome back, everybody. Oh, if you're watching, I should say this also. This is obviously one of my nieces. If you are watching the broadcast from inside the group Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, because we're a closed group, you have to grant StreamYard permission to use your name because of privacy policy. So if on your screen, it'll show your name, but on my screen, all I see is Facebook user. So I can only guess it's Alexander, Campbell, Lindsay, or McKenna. Hi, guys. Thank you for watching. I love you all. But please, we'll be taking questions and comments. I have an awesome guest tonight who I cannot wait to introduce you guys to. So please feel free. I like this to be interactive, like a town hall feel. This is your broadcast. I come to each Thursday night at 8 o'clock to bring you various topics pertaining to different ways we can live our best lives. And you don't have to have chronic pain or illness either. I find that most of the guests that I have on topics really apply to anybody that has any kind of pain or struggles. We talk a lot about mindfulness, journaling, self-care, things like that. So I think most of the things that you hear on my broadcast, you can relate to whether or not you live with chronic pain and illness. If you have never seen the show before, I have a YouTube channel. It's Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. Let me put that up there, actually. Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. This is the name of the Facebook group. We'd love to have you join if you're not a member. And that is the YouTube channel as well. And this is episode 53, actually. So we have a lot of great episodes and past guests that I would love to, have you get to know if you don't know me yet. If you're watching from inside the group and need to give StreamYard permission, this is the link, streamyard.com/Facebook. If you do that, you should be able to get your name and likeness on the screen if you want to comment and if you care about your name being on. If not, that's totally fine. And my website is gratitudeaddict.com. So I'm dying to get you guys, I'm dying to get my guest on because it's going to be one of those hours that's going to fly by because we have so much to talk about. Dr. Steve Overman, we had a meeting, I think it's been a couple months at this point, a couple months ago, but it was like because he's got so many amazing things to share. And I told him before the broadcast aired that I would rather have, I don't need to have a guest on each week. I only bring on guests that I feel bring value to our audience and who have really valuable things that we can use, take bits and pieces from. And Dr. Overman certainly does have that. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I have to tell you about a funny story that happened to me today. So again, if you're new to the broadcast, each week I wear a gratitude shirt, usually different. This one's really old. It says, eat, sleep, be grateful, repeat. In fact, it's got a bleach stain on it right down there. It's really old. So I went to Costco today, which I love Costco, but that's a whole other issue. I was in Costco today, and a gentleman was looking at me in the freezer section. I was busy looking at like the ramen noodles, and they're frozen ramen noodles, but he was looking at me and he goes, "Nice shirt." And at first I couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic or not. And then I saw he was very sincere. And then he kept looking at it, and I know he wasn't, I'm not well endowed, so I know he wasn't looking there. He was really looking at my shirt. He's like, "I really like that shirt." And then he looked at the back. He was waiting for the punchline. He didn't think that a shirt could just be nice like that. Thought it would be like, eat, sleep, be grateful, repeat, on the back, like, and screw you or something like that. Like that's what he told me that he thought it would say. And I'm like, no, I wear gratitude shirts every day. So I just thought that was kind of funny, but also kind of sad. But I'm like, yeah, if I see you here again, you'll see me in a different gratitude shirt. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. Thought it was very funny. Yeah, I think next week. Next week, we have a great guest on next week who's coming on. Her name is Jory Rose, and she's going to talk about getting unstuck. She is a therapist and an author, and she wrote this book, beautiful, beautiful book, called A Year of Gratitude, Daily Moments of Reflection, Grace, and Thanks. And I've had this book, it only came out this year, but I've had it, I must have gotten it right when it came out. I mean, my bookshelf is full of gratitude books because I love them so much. It turns out we have the same publisher. So my book, my 5-minute gratitude journal for teen boys, is coming out on November 30th through Rock Ridge Press. And I didn't realize until I was contacting her that we have the exact same publisher. So she's going to be coming on with us next week. She's got a great message talking about getting unstuck in your life. So I highly encourage you to be here next Thursday, which I believe is the 5th of August at 8 o'clock. So that is it for that. I want to bring on our guest, Dr. Steve Overman. I'm going to bring him on right now. Hey, Steve. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here with us. I've been sharing in the group Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain for quite a bit, but he co-wrote this book. So if you've been watching for a while, I believe it was May, I had on the co-author. This is a very unique book. It's called You Don't Look Sick, Living Well with Invisible Chronic Illness. And it's been out for, when did it come out, Steve? Like 2013, 14, something like that?
I think earlier than that was our first edition.
Okay.
The second edition.
I loved it so much. But what is so unique about it is it's written like a he said, she said. It's written from the patient's perspective and the physician's perspective. And as far as I know, that's the only book of its kind that does that. So I had Joy Selak, his co-author, on the show. We've actually become quite friendly. We talk all the time. She was on in May, and then she offered to introduce me to Dr. Overman. And of course, I jumped at the chance. So today we're going to hear the physician's side of it. But anyway, thank you, Steve, so much for being here with us. I know you're.
Well, let me just tee off with that right there.
Yeah, go.
You know, it's been a wonderful journey. And Joy had been a patient of mine for maybe 10 years, maybe 15, I'm not sure. When she said to me, would you write a book with me? And I, just like with you, Lauren, I say yes to everything, at least once. And what it was is that she, as she told the story, she grew up in Texas. She had a mother who, let's say, went out on every spiritual branch to the tip. I mean, Joy can remember her mother having seances when she was growing up and so forth. And Joy had been sick and had had autoimmune fibromyalgia stuff and was doing better. We'd worked together a long time. But she was home, and her mother made a statement, something like, Joy, in a sense, if you got your spiritual life together, if you got it in order, you'd get well.
Oh,
And it sort of kicked her in the gut. It was
and
like,
I can tell you that everybody watching that lives with chronic pain and illness just got kicked in the gut hearing that. That's heartbreaking.
and her feeling was, I am well now. It's taken a long time to feel that I'm well. I've had losses, but I've had gains, and living, with this illness. So she went to the bookstore and started looking around. And in fact, all the books that she saw at that time with chronic pain and illness were something to the effect, if you did blank, you can fill in the blank. We know it meant many different things.
Right.
Then you will get well, where get well really meant getting rid of illness.
Right.
And she was about saying, I've been on this journey. So she said, let's write a book together. We talked back and forth about what that might mean. And I'm not sure I was ever clear on what it would be. But what she did was she went out and wrote, initially, I think it was 12 vignettes, 12 stories about, living with illness, just having illness. And that's when I read those and I said, Joy, I see the journey through these stories. And so that's how we put it together. And so what we ended up doing was putting them together in a way that I said there were really these phases we went through. And then we went to the literature, and there's some research on phases of illness. And we may pose some questions about that in a second. And so I ended up then, in a sense, observing and discussing what she had been through in those phases after each of those phases. But, for example, one of her chapters is titled in the beginning, The Snake in the Mist. Now, if that doesn't sound like something that is fearful, in that story, basically her point was lying under the clouds, thinking to herself on a day that she was so fatigued, but she was I'm going to die before I figure out what's going on with me. And then she also had one in the early, I forget the name of it, but it was basically about how to fire. Three strikes is the chapter. 3 strikes. How and when to fire your doctor. Strike.
Yeah, right. And she did share with us. She went through the ringer finding doctors until she came to you.
And then, so just to bridge, in a sense, your journey, Lauren, and your question, gratitude. That's really where Joy came through all this. That she went through the phases of the crisis of illness. She in the phase of trying to figure out how to manage, and then I think she felt, and we began to understand. And I have one particular story, particularly around that phase when you've gotten an A+ on all the assignments, and you've done it all right.
I saw that in your.
But it didn't go away.
No, you can do everything perfectly.
And that's the point when grief happens. And I remember having this sort of aha that grief is not the same as depression.
Right.
And I walked into a room with Craig, and I tell this story where Craig was an injured worker. He had been suicidal when I first saw him. He had major stuff. But boy, did he do well in terms of doing everything I asked him to do, both medication, self, and so forth. But I so remember walking into the room that day when I felt like I'd walked into a black hole, that Craig was sitting there. That same energy and excitement about how he was doing was not present. And I sat down and I said to him, Craig, and we chatted. But then I said, Craig, I think I know where you are. And it was really because of writing this book. And I said, this is not depression. This is grief. This is the grief of the life you lost, and you're not going to get back, even though you did everything right. And to make, to put an exclamation point, sort of the end of my story, no person has ever so spontaneously put his face down in his hands like this. And even as I think about it, I can almost tear up because I saw he had tears dripping between his fingers.
Yeah.
So once he, understood that, he was able to, in a sense, move on. But that was also a poignant story. However, I'm going to jump right. I want to get to gratitude though, because
no, it's okay. I want to ask you. Find out about your background and everything.
That's actually less relevant.
It really is grief, and I find that people that come to attitude of gratitude with chronic pain, we don't usually get people that are newly diagnosed with something. We're usually getting the people that have been through the ringer, that have been sick a long time, that have tried everything, that have been those teachers' pets, A+ students, and nothing's happening. And so it's more like, all right, how can I live my best life with this? Because I don't have control over it.
Hey, Lauren, let's pose to the group. I love medicine because I could look you in the eye and talk to you, but I can't see you right now. So I would love to pose some questions. Would that be
yes,
now?
Absolutely.
Because then I can make my sort of gratitude point. So go ahead and.
So you want the questions you provided to me earlier? Okay. So Dr. Overman,
also known as Steve.
He's retired, right? You're retired.
Well, I'm not. I'm not doing an active practice. I'm working for a tech company and have my alley practice and teach at the university. So I am happily busy.
Happily busy, but the great thing about Steve is that he is, and I understand why Joy loves you so much, because you genuinely care about people. You want to help people, and you want to find out how to better help people. So Steve gave me these questions that he wanted to pose to all of you today, only because he's curious. He's not using it for anything. He's curious. So, before I do that, though, we're giving away, Steve has kindly agreed to give away a free copy, autographed copy of You Don't Look Sick. Anytime during the broadcast tonight, all you have to do is in the comments write #gratitude, and you will be entered to win. So I'll say that a few times, but remember that. So #gratitude, and you'll be entered to win if you're watching live. But yes, anyway, so Steve provided me with these questions that he wanted to hear from you guys, what your answers are. And I never had that happen before, and I think it's amazing. So please feel free to answer. It's optional, of course.
And including my email was one of the choices. My email is simple. If you want to independently respond, I won't get to it right now, but it's Overman. Yeah.
I got it.
UW.edu. Thank you.
Overman at uw.edu. Or if you want to put in the comments too, for those of you watching the recorded version, I will post these as well. So he wants to know your answers to the following questions. So question 1, which describes you best? A, I'm trying to accept and learn to live more meaningfully with my pain. B, I'm trying to find new ways to reduce or rid myself of my pain. Oh, that didn't deserve a question mark my bad. Or C, both. I have a feeling I know what the answers are going to be to this, but so let me read those again. In the comments, please feel free to put your answer. Which describes you best? I am trying to accept and learn to live more meaningfully with my pain. Trying to find new ways to reduce or rid myself of pain, or both. So, and then we have more questions after that, but let's tackle right now.
Let some of those come in and interrupt as you've got some comments, but I think now's the time I'm going to queue up some science.
Okay.
That I learned just recently, and it's remarkable science. And it's a man who studies the cell. And we've heard of RNA with our RNA vaccinations. Well, transcriptional RNA is, in a sense, our cells activating certain pathways to make proteins of a particular kind. And when inflammation gets turned on, there's two patterns of inflammation. There's a pattern of inflammation that we're going to call good inflammation. And I'm going to be real simple. And there's a pattern that is we're going to call bad inflammation, the kind that's been seen associated with many, many chronic illnesses. And the question he had was, could we differentiate which inflammation got turned on based on how we pursued happiness? Okay. So he basically said he's going to define two types of happiness. One is the all the gusto you can, have all the fun you can happiness. Or two, I'm going to describe as the happiness of gratitude. He defined it as the happiness of meaning, of finding meaning in life. But gratitude is that acknowledgement of appreciation of those and everything around you. And that's the happiness of meaning. And he showed that inside ourselves, in our immune system, that when we're in pursuit of the happiness of gratitude, it turns off the bad inflammation.
Wow.
While the other activated it.
Not surprising, but so I love hearing things like that.
So
it's not surprising.
when I come back to this question, I've heard comments go both ways around it. And I guess my point is that the pursuit of living well and finding meaning, in fact, can have active, therapeutic, internal benefits that I just described, which is a roundabout way, possibly, of helping turn off the bad inflammation and therefore succeeding with B while you're pursuing A. So, my answer to those is always both.
That would be my answer too, not to sway any, but yeah, that would be mine as well. But that's incredibly interesting. I hadn't heard that. It's very interesting.
It's new for me too.
Just within the past few years, in fact, I'm interviewing a researcher, Dr. Tomorrow, that she does research on gratitude and chronic pain, as well as procrastination and perfectionism with chronic pain, which I found interesting. But it's really cool to see the scientific part of it. I've been running this group for 7 years now, and we've got diehard 6,200 people that feel like it has changed their lives for the better. So we know. But to a lot of people, they think, oh, we're just like shoving things under the rug. We're not, dealing with it head on. And that's not what it is at all. At all. I believe we all need to talk about our conditions, or it's not healthy. But, learning, there's a way to live our lives better. It doesn't have to be a death sentence just because we're sick. Easier said than done, I know. But yeah, that's very interesting. Let's take a couple comments here because I see they're coming up. Let's see. We got Heidi's here. Hi, Heidi. Wayne Blanchard, who happens to be my dad. Hi, Dad. Arlene, welcome, Dr. Overman. Sarah Garrison, hello, Lauren and Steve. Sarah Garrison, I love your book, Steve. Sarah Garrison is a big fan of your book. She's written about it in our book club several times. She really loves it. Mary, glad to be here. We're glad you're here too, Mary. Thank you so much for expressing how I and so many have felt with chronic sickness. And then we've got a lot of people entering the contest here, which is awesome. Okay, we've got some answers here. Let's see. Arlene says A. So she's learning how to live. She wants to live. What was A again? It was
living well.
Living well. Yep. Sarah's both. Heidi's A. Mary's A. Brenda's. Oh, interesting. Oh, this isn't surprising only because of what our group is. And like I said earlier, it's people that we've tried all the craziest things to get rid of our pain. It just doesn't seem to work. I mean, maybe some little things work, but so we're just trying to live peacefully and joyfully with it. Another A. Linda says both. Jill Cook's here. 2 types. Wow. 2 types. What did I miss on that? See, this is what happens when I let the comments go. Then I lose track of what I was saying. I'll figure it out, Jill. Sorry. One more reason to be grateful.
I certainly think the connector here is for those who appropriately, and this is the whole space that Joy and I wrote the book, are in the A space.
Yeah.
That is to have this openness to what life has to offer, because just when you're pointed towards A, B may happen.
Right. Right. And that's why I love your book so much.
All the possibilities, right?
There's a million books that are going to tell you, you know, eat a vegan diet and do Reiki and all this stuff. And maybe some helps, maybe some doesn't. For me personally, with everything I tried, you know, just like everybody else, I tried a lot. With every failed attempt, it brought me lower and lower, resenting myself, feeling like a failure and all of that. And I'm not giving up hope, but all I have is today, and I want to learn how to live happily today. And that's what I love about your book. What you enjoy talk about is how to live happily today. Arlene says, that's fascinating. I love that gratitude is helping my body. Agree. Love the results of that study. Me too, Pamela. Hello, Robin. Thank you for sharing with us. Jill Cook says both. 2 types, paths. Oh, the paths of gratitude. Yes. 2 types of, oh, okay. Oh, the 2 types of inflammation. That's what you were talking about. Yeah, that was super interesting. Super interesting. So thank you guys all for answering. Keep continuing to answer. Don't forget to put #gratitude if you'd like to win a copy of the book. So in a nutshell, so Joy came to you as a patient, and how did you guys get this book going?
Well, it was, it's once she was doing better, and frequently we'd have visits, and then we'd be finished and the chart would close back when we had paper charts, and I would just lean back and I would just want to explore, how she had done what she was doing and just to better understand. And so sometimes we'd have philosophical conversations. Sometimes it was, and that's really what triggered her to say, will you write a book with me?
Well, I have to say that we have an anonymous question from somebody who couldn't be here tonight. What if you had a patient who wanted to continue talking about illness and its effects long after the scheduled meeting time was up? How would you handle that?
Well, let me go back to the beginning of the meeting. Okay, the beginning is this relationship where I know that I never, ever had enough time for every person all the time. And so we hear of doctor burnout and so forth, and it's real, and it's frustrating. So every patient that I saw at one time or another, I would say, Lauren, I want to know everything it is that you've said to me and everything I've not stuck around to listen to. Believe it or not, I really want to know all that. But it's a bit like it's like a painting. If you bring me a painting at the beginning of the visit, I can look at that and I can see so much. I can see what the subject is. I can see how it's done. I can see all the pieces that are, how elements of the painting, which is your 1-page summary. So now this is the metaphor. 1-page summary that you bring to me in the beginning of the visit, right. I can quickly go through. But what I don't have time is to watch you paint the painting one stroke at a time, go through every one of the questions and tee them up to me, and I answer one, then you have one more, and we go on forever. So with that said, this was sort of the framework around which I tried to teach people how to be patients. And I would say they would when they graduated from the undergraduate, being a patient, to the postgraduate course is when when she came in with, on the top it had, here are my questions, here are my new symptoms, here are my medications. Here's the other doctor's things that have happened since I last seen you. Here's my assessment. This is what I think is going on. And to get to the graduate course, she had the very end was, this is what I think should be done or should be considered. So I could see all the data. I could see how she was thinking, and I knew whether she and I were moving in the same direction or where it was that I might have thought we needed to go right and she felt we needed to go left. Whether it was like a cousin of mine says, I hurt my back and I need an MRI. And I would then go back and try to talk her through, well, maybe, maybe not, but let's do the test when it helps the most. So for every decision, there's background information. Now, back to the person's question. At the point where I have felt like I've done my best and the person wants to continue talking about illness and its effects and so forth, and I know I'm already running late and I've been late to their appointment because of somebody else, I would hopefully have a relationship which would basically be that, I'm so sorry I've got to go, but let's get back together sooner than later. And you have two choices. I'll call you when you get home tonight and we can chat on the phone, or I'll work you back in before office sometime at your convenience. So that was the loop. And it actually relates to one other thing I'll mention that it was always important to me, which is my card, my professional card, always had my email and my phone number on it that patients could take. And so when our clinic became part of a larger system, and the system people came around, they said, you can't do that anymore. And I said, I can't practice if I don't, because I had to have the security and to be able to sleep, that people knew if something went wrong or something was in crisis, that they could get a hold of me, that they weren't going to be stonewalled at any point along the way. Now, the flip side of this, I think, is I now know is increasingly important, which is that our threat system for all of us, sometimes we call it stress, we call it a variety of things, but the bottom line is, if we're afraid, if we feel threat, then our bodies cannot heal. Another bit of science I won't go through, but it's really, really remarkable science at the cellular level, that when we're under threat, we have our cells have a certain metabolism that tries to defend, but it doesn't allow it to move into the healing phase until that threat is gone. So if a person walks out not knowing what exactly what their diagnosis is, like Joy, snake in the mist, and they're on medications they don't know, and medications they're afraid may hurt them, on and on and on. If I can't help them feel less fearful and more in control by being willing to say, I'm available to you 24/7 if you need me, then, they're not going to be able to move ahead. And, I had docs, give me the look or ask directly about, aren't you crazy? And I will say, and I say this sincerely, no one ever abused having that information. I might have gotten an email that was a little longer than another, but that was the cue of a quick read and saying, thank you, we need to get together. Come on in tomorrow so we can talk. And so it gave me a pulse on where somebody was with their acceptance. It was down the road, or the immediate crisis of illness and the medications I had them on, that, we were moving in the right direction. So, anyway, that would be
I'm shaking my head because I know that the audience is all like, oh my gosh, where can we find a doctor like Dr. Overman? I mean, if only. I have a great rheumatologist in New York City, but doctors like you are in gold.
Well, yeah. This is sweet, but let me also respond to this.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is to say that we're not going to get doctors like that the way because of the systems that we're in and the way things are, until each and every one of you takes it on as your responsibility to train your doctor, so to speak. And I'm saying this seriously and with a sense of humor, that I think the most direct route to improving our healthcare system, to helping docs be the kinds of docs and people they want to be, is through the gratitude, that you show in the beginning, There's nothing quite like walking in and somebody saying thank you and showing all the gratitude for the work that we do, and then being very open and clear about what you need. And when you're feeling threatened, when you're feeling fearful, when you feel like you're not getting from whatever that you know you need to get well, to be able to lay that out there very simply, to say things that could help, I mean, you don't have to condemn a front desk person who doesn't let you get in for 3 months.
Right.
You don't, point fingers, but you need to say, I need to be able to ask a question. How can we do this efficiently?
Right.
So help the system get better to meet your needs.
So you feel in training your doctor, just be very clear, honest, upfront.
I think,
obviously not caustic.
I think being gracious, showing gratitude, being clear and communicating, putting this down in simple ways, put it on, it is absolutely a wonderful way to build a relationship and to help set your doctor up for success. Now, if you have a doctor who, with this sort of open, loving communication, turns on you, or it doesn't, let's just say doesn't accept it, that's strike 3. Go find another doctor.
Yeah. So many of us, I know, and I know you know this too, so many of us go through so many before we find somebody that we feel really cares. And I, as a patient, a lot of times I feel like I go in and I know I have a short amount of time and I'm nervous and it's a new person. I've got to explain my entire life story in a short amount of time. Yeah, it's so difficult. But man, having like what you said, having that open communication with being able to email and all of that. I actually have 2 doctors like that do that with me. And it really is a game changer. It's really beautiful. So this same anonymous poster had a follow-up question, which was, where is it? What if that patient asked you to write a book with her? What would you do?
Well, I've already disclosed everything. I say yes to everything. So
the anonymous poster is Joy Selak. She is slumming it up in Hawaii right now.
She is on. Oh, Joy.
Thought we'd play a little trick on you, doctor.
Yeah. You're bad. You're bad.
But it would be wonderful if we could have that relationship with our doctors. And if a doctor just doesn't seem responsive, what would you recommend? Finding another doctor? Just keep going and looking for another doctor?
I mean, I think being upfront, gracious, and kind goes a long way, but then being direct. And I also used to say that some of my quote best patients were the ones who, when I had performed poorly, and I knew it sometimes, but you don't always have a chance to say you're sorry, and they ended up writing me a note or writing a letter, or the next time they were in, they would sort of metaphorically grab me by the collars and say, Dr. O, last time didn't go so well. And it was an opportunity for me to reflect, to learn, to say thank you for pointing out that this or that didn't go well, because goodness knows we all have bad days, and the electronic record and so forth has only made things worse for people.
Absolutely. So anyway. Absolutely. And I know time. Is that me doing the beeping or is that you?
That's me, and I don't know why. There's this from my company that are going off, and I don't know how.
That's okay. If it's not you, I told you. Usually, I'm the hot mess, so as long as it's not me, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. We've got a couple of comments here. Let's see. Hashtag amazing guest. I know, isn't he? Pamela Creighton says, such kindness. Yes, we all need a doctor like you. Arlene says, I believe that I was in the threat mode for years, and now I'm lucky to have a doctor who actually listens and is engaged. I did tell him that we would get to know each other very well because I am a good advocate for myself. I was very clear that I needed the communication was important. That's great, Arlene.
So let me, Lauren.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and tee up another another thing that I've worked on, and it started with Joy. It started with the book, and we talked about these phases and the idea that people move through phases in illness. And when you're threatened, when you're in crisis, it's a whole different place.
Right.
I need to recognize, you need to recognize. And when I teach docs and physical therapists and so forth, I would say during these phases, during phase one of crisis, the single goal of the visit is for you to walk out with a sense of hope. So that would be my goal.
That'd be nice. I know.
During the phase of trying to learn how to manage this stuff and get it all together, my single goal is for you to walk out feeling more confident, trying to build your confidence.
Yeah.
But then when you do it all right and things don't work and grief and all this stuff happens, then really my goal is to walk out helping you find acceptance. But guess what? There's no doctor that's got the inside track on that. This is the human condition. And so just being available is really what that's all about. And then it's phase four, finding meaning and wellness is the one phase where I could acknowledge Joy's terminology. She used to say that the doctor and patient could have a partnership. And I would push back a little bit, say, no, guess what? I'm the professional. Phase one, phase two, phase three, that's my job. But when you get to living a life of meaning, clearly that's where the partnership comes in, because I learned as much, I learned as much from you and my patients as hopefully I can offer them.
Right.
Now, so that those are the phases. Now, in pain, since that time, I've worked on what I've called the patient perspective pain paradigm. So it includes this concept of moving through phases. It also has tried to break down the elements of what I used to talk to people about in working with and around their pain, but have put it into categories. So I call it the 5 components of pain. And I'll throw this out for people to sort of try on. Great. And my point here is that this is not so much about treating chronic pain, though it works. My feeling is if every person who has pain for whatever reason, from an injury, from surgery, if they were considered, both themselves and their doctors, considered these 5 components immediately, not waiting till, quote, they have chronic pain, then we could help prevent a lot of chronic pain. And these 5 components, one is what I'm going to call the autonomic or the threat system. I've already talked about that. This idea that if we're under threat, that it affects all aspects of our cognition, our immune system, and so forth, is a science that I've known, quote, but I've gotten to know so much better in the last few years in studying this. So I think that's number one.
Okay.
Safety first. Okay. Number 2 is emotion and cognition. That we have to think about what we're thinking and our emotions. And so that domain needs to be thought about and asked about by every doctor. How are you feeling about stuff? What are you thinking? If your mind's just running on and on and on with fear, okay, that's obviously triggering the threat system, but that's a thinking that can be interrupted. You can take control of your thinking. So that's sort of part 2. Part 3 is the nervous system sensitization. And given that this is more of a medical concept, I tie that to sleep. Your nervous system can't relax. It can't get better if you don't have quality sleep. Now, people with fibromyalgia and some pain syndromes know that they have a very sensitized nervous system. You just touch my skin, it hurts.
Right.
So that is a sensitized nervous system. So we're trying to prevent that.
Right.
And treat. Then the fourth part that is that I'm trying to get every doc to think and ask about is inflammation. Because inflammation is so frequently hand in glove with an activated nervous system. It's part of the autoimmunity. There was a study recently, a few years just reported, that showed that individuals with post-traumatic stress disorder, within a year after that diagnosis, had a significant increased risk of being diagnosed with one of 21 different autoimmune syndromes. So we know that inflammation is triggered by stress. So how we need to think about it. People have lumbago back pain and they forget. I've talked to 2 neighbors this week about their acute back problems and trying to help them understand. They hit it hard with the anti-inflammatories for a few days. Inflammation is is the fourth part. And then number 5 is movement. Exercise can sound like a bad word, but it's not about exercise. It's understanding movement is critical for learning to how to prevent re-injury, how to move in a way to help your mind, free your mind, how to move in a way to restore your body, and on and on and on. So those are my 5 components that I actually teach the physical therapist to try to think about pain in those 5 dimensions, as opposed to what most physical therapists are trained in, which is movement.
Right. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of those. Before that, let's throw out one of your other questions. Question number 2. Is it important? If so, how much for you to be taught how to self-assess the components of your pain?
And I just teed up the components.
Yeah. So that's what we'd like the answer to. Is it important? If so, how much for you to be taught how to self-assess the components of your pain? And just a reminder again, if you'd like to win the free book, it's #gratitude. All right. So all of these components that you just talked about. So how do we deal with that as the patient? How do we how do we comfort ourselves with all of that? What's the best thing to do?
My feeling, and as I've shared, Lauren, it's a book that I've drafted, but may or may not get written. But my feeling is that if I can help teach you how to self-assess within these components, as I'm also assessing, then together, A, we learn more, B, having a sense of control, of trying to understand this complexity and breaking it down into these parts and gaining understanding builds your confidence. And when you have more confidence, then all things, work together better. So, how do we assess threat? Well, go look in the mirror. Your pupils dilated or your hands sweaty? Do you have that butterfly feeling in your stomach? What's your state?
Right.
How do you assess your emotions and your thoughts? What are your thoughts? What are they spinning off to? Do you feel like you've got a scratch in the record? Are you over emotional about one thing or another? Do you have anger, fear? Okay. And these are self-assessable, and we can think, okay, what's the meaning? What about my nervous system? Is it becoming sensitized? Do I feel light touch sensitivity? Am I not sleeping well? These are indicators really of inflammation. Sometimes inflammation's tough. If it's a wrist, you can look at it. Is it red? Is it swollen? If it's deep, can't always tell.
Right.
So the question that I try to get physical therapists to ask more is, are you stiff in the mornings? Does that stiffness work its way out? But even that can, overlap with other symptoms. Let's go back to the basics. Can you take an appropriate dose of Advil or Aleve, and in fact, note within one day some benefit? Do anti-inflams still help or not? So, we've been down these paths, tried it, didn't work. We have to come back and reassess all the time. And then movement, we can talk about movement.
We could talk for the next 6 hours. I would love to hear your thoughts on say you are a nervous person and very fearful. How do you deal with that?
I said assessment is first, right?
Right.
And then, of course, your 50 speakers and webinars you've had, everybody's talking about different elements of how to deal with these things.
Right.
I would start tonight, though, if we all, every time we have a thought or emotion or a sense of fear, or we're walking into a new situation, or, I'm just going to say what I used to do before I went from one office to another. I didn't learn this in the beginning. I'm sure Joy found times when I should have, but I didn't. But if you can just stop for a moment, close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath, and exhale over a matter of 8 seconds or so, and do that a couple times. That is, in fact, the medically described, proven relaxation response. It's first described by Herbert Benson, a cardiologist at Harvard back in the 70s. That has been shown to reduce heart rate, to decrease adrenaline, to relax your nervous system. So whenever you're feeling threatened, if you can just say, wait a minute, take my mind away from that space or literally move out of that space. So if I was walking into office, I just close my eyes for a second. And then you take a deep breath and then you slowly exhale. And almost every time I do that, I get goosebumps because it does cause a slow relaxation of your autonomic nervous system. And so we start with those principles. And then from those principles are all kinds of things that everybody on this call has learned from themselves, but we have to cue ourselves to remember to do these things.
We do. That has been a huge help to me too. And I think a lot of people blow off the whole, they hear meditation and they're like, nope, don't want to hear it. But each day in the group at around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I post what I call breath breaks. They're usually under 5 minutes. There are YouTube videos, and a lot of times it's just guided, like, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. A couple of minutes, you would not, if you guys don't do it, you would not believe what it does for you. It may sound like it's nothing. It is not nothing. It really, really helps.
Lauren, let me throw in part of the science that I've been learning is a Wednesday night meeting. I have a number of scientists, and I won't go into the study, but one of them studies heart rate variability and its predictive nature in terms of pain and immune system function. And in fact, doing exactly that type of breathing, 10 minutes a day is what he says, has been shown to change your biologically measurable heart rate variability and how that has positive health impacts.
Really?
So this is, trying to bring all of this, in a sense, meditation woo-woo into rock solid science.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, especially a lot of, my followers think, well, I can't sit still for 20 minutes, but you don't have to do 20 minutes. You don't have to sit there,
Just think about your breathing.
Yeah, exactly.
Focus on your breathing.
1 minute's all it takes for sure. Arlene says it would be lovely to have a list of the letter and what you found helpful, like the one that Joy wrote you. The letter. Don't remember. I don't remember though.
Maybe she's speaking of the one piece of paper into the office. And if that's it, then I would just encourage each person on the call to make up their own.
To kind of say, this is who I am, this is what's going on, that type of thing.
And again, my idea was it's like looking at a painting. And now some people had to go to 2 pages, but if it's 1 page, right? I could look at 1 page. I could see so much in a second. And in fact, besides that, every person that came into my office had to fill out my own questionnaire as well. So sometimes you had to do double duty. But the amount of information that would come through from a pain diagram to the review of all the systems was critical. And I'll conclude this comment with everyone still in medical school. We're taught, I teach, and hopefully they still learn that 90% of a correct diagnosis, the most important information is in the story. It's in the history. It's in the story. If I didn't have an idea what was going on after the story, no amount of labs was going to get me there.
Interesting. It's so nice to know that there's doctors like you out there that actually would read something like that, and that look at the whole picture.
And let me be clear, this was not instead of getting the story. Okay. When I can glance and see all the questions, then when I say, Lauren, now tell me your story, I am much better at listening to it and helping you navigate in a way that we can come up with the data we need and answer your questions as we go, because I know everything that's within the picture right now. So don't anyone ever think this is an exclusion.
Right.
Face-to-face time.
Right. Let's see. Jill Cook would like to know, what questions should we be asking our doctors? That's a good question.
Well, I'm going to say the questions that you have. The questions you have.
Yeah.
And to me, there is no dumb question. The other thing I used to say to people is, it is not for you as a patient to try to figure out which questions to ask which doctor, as far as I'm concerned. It's our job to quickly go through and say, of your 20 questions, these are the ones that I think I can help you with. And the other 17, you might, distribute to your primary care or somebody else. But guess what? If you have 20 questions, that tells me a lot, right? It tells me that I need somebody working with me on my team who's even got more time than I. And this is why in our office, having a psychologist, having a dietitian, having nurse practitioners were so helpful, because sometimes it takes somebody else to both have the time as well as being more articulate than I might be in trying to answer a question.
Right.
Many different flavors.
Steve's last question for you all is extra credit. What ideas for apps, books, services, what do you wish was available to you that you haven't found yet? Which is I can't wait to hear answers.
And if you have an opus you want to write, send it to me via email.
Yes. Speaking of that, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm going to put up your email address again, overman@uw.edu. And I will put this in the, after the show is over, I will put that as well, please.
And since we didn't do full intros, which is great, I'm glad to not waste the time. For those who live around the country, that's University of Washington, not Wisconsin.
Yes, he's out in Washington with all the wildfires out there. So we only have a couple more minutes, guys. Your last time, #gratitude, and we're going to see if my little thingy works again. My little Wheel of Fortune. No, actually, Campbell's not here tonight, so we're going to see. So #gratitude, you will be entered in if you've already put it in. What else do we have to say? So what would be like you've given us so much great information. What would be your best advice? Like what kind of when you live with a lifelong illness, or what kind of a doctor should we be? Do we settle because we've been through so many doctors? Like where should we look? Because so many of us have been through so many doctors already.
Well, I don't think I have a simple answer for that, but I'm gonna change it slightly.
Okay.
I'm gonna give the last part of my patient paradigm, because it was what I described as number four, but FOR, for you care. I would ask people, what's their program? And sometimes they'd say, I see a chiropractor on Monday, an acupuncturist Tuesday, and they go down the list. And that goes under the column of things done to you. And there's things done for you. So things done in advocacy and disability and so forth and so forth. Those are important. But for everything in the columns of to you and for you, I say there should be a bungee cord. And that should connect to something under the columns of me for me, you for you. What are you doing for yourself? What's your self-care and so forth? And then the last column is you and others. And it's your family, it's your job, and so forth. And so on the one hand, I know that when there's deep anchors of threats at work, threats in marriages, threats in past adverse traumas, it's harder to get well. So the answers may not always be in finding the perfect doctor. The answers are more commonly understanding the balance of these four columns, because only the doctor and the therapist can kind of help direct to you, and they can do some things for you. But goodness knows, is the supportive community you've got here. It's looking for the things that are triggering threat that in your life that you can try to let go of or learn how to deal with differently. All these things are equally important. So it does take a neighborhood, it takes a village, it takes a family better. And I don't think there's one person that's going to be the answer for you.
No, in fact, actually, this is a good segue into Arlene, which I'll leave this as the last comment. I would love to have a place to go where all doctors from many places could look at all of me. That is what I would have. I would love that too. Absolutely. That is the dream. We all want Dr. House, don't we? Dr. House from TV. Joy certainly was a very lucky patient to have you. And we've been so lucky to have you on the show. The book again is You Don't Look Sick, Living Well with Invisible Chronic Illness. Again, I'm going to put Steve's email address up because he really legitimately wants to hear from you guys. He really, really does. He's one of a kind.
And let me end with what I said before. When each of you can teach a doctor to be the doctor you want.
Oh.
I had so many great professors, Joy being one of them, who, helped me be the doctor that I wanted to be.
I bet she would argue with you on that, but yeah, she's a special person too. This is a great book, guys. You can get it on Amazon. You Don't Look Sick. And Joy's website as well, joywrites.com. I think she autographs them when you get them from her, but don't quote me on that. I feel like she told us that, but I'm not really sure. Poor Joy. Sorry, Joy, if that's not true.
It's a true statement. True statement.
Oh, okay, good. All right, so #gratitude. Everybody's got their name in. Before I do the drawing, just a reminder, next week we've got Jory Rose, Getting Unstuck, beautiful book, Year of Gratitude. Please email Steve. He's one of a kind, and wants to hear from all of us. He wants to help people. So let's see if we can get this thing going here. Let's see. I've only done this one other time. Usually my niece is my producer and she does this Wheel of Fortune thing, but she's on vacation. So I am doing this myself, but there's a new tool that I can use. So anybody that put in hashtag, oh, here it is. Okay. So we've got 11 people that entered. So let's see here. Good luck, everybody. Oh, wait, I'm doing the wrong thing. Here we go. How cool. Who is it? Brenda Royer. Congratulations, Brenda. Congratulations. If you can private message me your address, and Steve, again, has kindly agreed to autograph that and send that out to you. Congratulations. That's great. You're going to love this book. It's a wonderful book. Steve, I knew the hour was going to go fast. It just went way too fast. I could have talked to you for another 3 hours, but thank you so much for being here with us tonight. You're a real pleasure, and the medical community is lucky to have you. You've given us some great tips.
You guys inspire. That's what we do it for. Thanks.
Take care, everybody. See you next week. Love you all. Peace and love. Let's see. The last couple of weeks, I've forgotten to do my closing. So let's see if I can remember. I actually didn't knock myself off the air this week. So that was a good thing. Here we go. Okay, gang. I'll see you next week.
Bye.